It's just a bit of your unconsciousness coming up to be transformed into consciousness. And that only happens by love. Nothing else does it except love. You can't beat yourself into becoming more conscious. You can't discipline yourself into becoming more conscious. The only thing that does it is love, as far as I can see. Hello, friends. John Dalton here, Further Emergence podcast, where we go into love, consciousness, and mystery. In this episode, we're going into a question about loneliness and God, going deeper, a satisfied life, accepting love, and the inefficiency of shame. Well, I was all set to go tromping around outside, but then the heavens opened and plans changed. So I've had a question come in response to my question that I post on the Further Emergence Instagram feed. What's the biggest challenge you're facing in your spiritual life at the moment? And this person says loneliness. And I asked them to elaborate, and they said, well, John, it's the absence of God. The most disconnected I have ever felt in my life. And with that feeling comes loneliness in my life. I often wonder when God will tire of this joke. They are playing on me. I'm always seeking, but it's a struggle to find God. Okay, they said other things, that they moved and they're in another state and they're on their own and they've got no support system or anything like that. But that's kind of separate to this thing of finding God. I'm not sure I can, here's how to find God. I don't know if it works like that. But I know if you want something from God, it doesn't really work like that. It's certainly not my experience anyway. Because what often happens is, whatever we couldn't work out with our parents, we transfer onto the idea of God. And we kind of make God something that it isn't. Certainly in my experience, it's like we put pressure on this idea of God to prove that we're loved, prove that we're, validated, seen, all these things. And in my experience, God's not interested in any of that stuff. It's a weird kind of paradox. This is just my experience of God anyway. It's like God's incredibly, and I'm calling it God. I don't know what to call it. This thing I know that other people call God. Sometimes I kind of go, that's kind of what I can relate to that. Other times I'm like, I don't know what they're talking about. But then what I do see a lot is people it's almost like challenging the idea of God. They're sort of praying. They're like, please give me this thing. And the subtext is, and then when you give me that thing, I'll feel like I'm seen and validated, which is exactly the sort of things that we feel about our parents, that as I say, anything we couldn't figure out, we just transfer onto this idea of God. So, like in terms of loneliness, in my experience, there is to really get into it, there is a certain amount of loneliness involved. And it's loneliness in as much as you're just not distracted. There's no parties, there's no friends, there's no people calling around, there's none of those things. It's just you and what God is. So that feeling of loneliness can be the removal of all those distractions. It's why people go and live in caves, I think, I don't know why people go and live in caves, but I understand it, that need, that finding yourself in a situation where a lot of things have been taken away from you, to minimize the distraction so that you get to focus on whatever it is. And in this case, it sounds like seeking God. But I've found that seeking anything perpetuates the seeking. So it's very hard to find God when you're looking for God. I think it's a bit like enlightenment, it's very hard to, get enlightened when you're seeking, Certainly getting enlightened for me was the end of seeking, was the end of looking for it. I wasn't looking for it anymore. So I think it's the same with God. I think the pressure you're being put under, and I'm just speaking to this person here really, you find, you moved states for one particular reason, didn't turn out to be the thing you thought, and now you find yourself in a place that you don't have any support system, you don't have any backup, and you're interested in God. If you weren't interested in God, then it would be just a case of, well, start joining clubs and just figure it out kind of thing, like, if you, on that superficial level. But if you've got this thing about God, then it's the situation may be the way it is to help you, that it's cleared all the decks and really highlighted a seeking in you, a seeking for something that's already there, maybe something that you may, your glasses might be on the top of your head. Is kind of what I'm saying. You might be wearing them. That's certainly my experience of it anyway, that God is just there, or what people call God. I really don't like using that word, but we have to use some word. Because for me, it's just a mystery. Like the whole thing is a mystery. Like I know it. I know it like I know the sky behind me and the trees and all that kind of. I know what people call God. I know it in that way. But it's there all the time, and I think it's what's this situation is encouraging you to see is that it's there. It's inside you, and if you can let go of the seeking, you can you've got a little bit more space to be able to see it, maybe. Now, this is a comment that somebody left on YouTube. They said, it was the video I made about the first 50 years of childhood. So this person says, great video, thanks for making it, but I have a question. I had a horrible, traumatizing childhood, but somehow managed to heal myself from it. I've reached inner peace and tranquility. I have exchanged my bad habits for good ones. I have hobbies that I do. I have some good friends, and for the most part, succeeded in my career. I am only about to hit 23. What now? Obvious answer is have a wife and kids. But I'm surrounded by women that I find childish and immature. To mature women, I'm just like a child due to my age. I'm stuck in a paradox, and that is the only thing that worries me. Do you happen to have some advice? Wow, that's great. Good. You've done all that and you're 23. Well, in my experience, the things that we are working out in our lives can look like a circle when we look at it from the front. Let's say at 12 o'clock is childhood trauma. At 1 o'clock is power. At 3 o'clock is sex. 5 o'clock is money. 7 o'clock is creative expression, and so on. So we deal with the first thing, we deal with our childhood trauma. We go, that's fantastic. And then we deal with the next thing, we deal with the money. Then we deal with the sex. Then we do, we go around. It's great. And then at some point we find ourselves back at childhood trauma. I'm not saying this is in your case, but just, and we go, hang on a minute, I thought I dealt with this. I thought I dealt with it. And there can be a feeling of like, oh my God, I thought I dealt with money. Oh, I thought I dealt with power, whatever. And I think that comes from just perspective, because we're kind of looking at it from the front. We're looking at it like a clock face. But it's actually, if you take that clock face and turn it on its side, you see that it's a cylinder, or not cylinder, a spiral. Now you can go spiral up or spiral down, doesn't matter. But it's like you're going around. I kind of think of it as going deeper. And then up the sides of this spiral are the themes that we're looking at in our life. So, the theme of money, the theme of power, sex, childhood trauma, whatever. So each time we return to the same thing, we've gone down to a deeper part of it. We're processing it deeper, we're working through a deeper part of it. And then we continue on around in the spiral, and eventually we come back to the same thing, but we're deeper. And each time we're going deeper and deeper and deeper, working through our unconsciousness. So the first time it happens, when you return to the beginning, and you're like, oh, wow, I thought I dealt with this. There can be a feeling of like, oh, this is this is terrible. I thought I'd sorted it all out. And remembering this thing of a spiral can be helpful, because if you look for it, you'll see, oh yeah, this is deeper. There's where I was before and how where I'd arrived at before. Now, yeah, this is definitely deeper. So, you've got the different things you've talked about, the, wife and kids. I mean, I wouldn't just assume the next thing is going to be a wife and kids. I would only, I mean, I'd be wondering about, is that something I want? Is it something I really want? Or am I just looking around going, well, everyone else has a new car. I should probably get a new car. Oh, everyone else has got a wife and kids. Yeah, I should probably do that. Maybe not. Maybe that's not the thing for you. Maybe it is, in which case, great. And in terms of like who's attracted to you and who isn't, I think what matters more is who you're interested in. Like if you're not, the women that are your age, you're not that interested in them, that's fine. And if the older women are interesting to you but are not interested in you, well, that's fine as well. I just be open, and someone who's a bit of both will come along or not. It's a matter of just kind of being open to what your preference is, expressing your preference, getting very clear. Well, this is the sort of person I'd like to be with, or looking into it. I wouldn't just assume you want to be with somebody. Maybe you don't. But if you do, look into it and go, okay, who do I want to be with? What kind of person do I want? Get as clear as you can on that, because it's a neutral field. It will give you back how specific you are about it, and then forget about it and just see what happens. But I think the main thing I would be encouraging you to do is know this thing about the spiral, and that if you find yourself dealing with things that you thought you'd already dealt with, that's fine. It's part of it. You've just gone down another level, and I'm still dealing with stuff I dealt with when I was 23, along the same themes, but the depth that I'm dealing with them at is much deeper now than it was. And I've seen that in lots of people that I've worked with as well. The same kind of process, and this idea of a spiral rather than a clock face. Right, let's look at some of the memes on the Further Emergence Instagram feed. The first one says, a satisfied life is better than a successful life, because our success is measured by others, but our satisfaction is measured by our own soul, mind, and heart. It's like, the thing about memes is they all read great, don't they? They're like, oh, that's lovely. And you can be scrolling away there and read one after another and go, oh yeah, lovely, lovely. Even these little feel-good moments. But the reason I like talking about memes is there's a lot packed into them. And when you pull them apart, you can really see how revolutionary they can be, because the world is geared up for a successful life, not a satisfied life. And when you kind of make that switch and go, you know what, I think I'd prefer to just have a satisfied life, that's very counter to what everyone else is doing, and very, I would say, subversive, mainly because I'm not exactly sure that that's the right, I'm using that word right there. But it is a little bit revolutionary. And you would be going against the stream if you kind of go, yeah, satisfaction, that's the thing that I'm going to go for that rather than success. Because maybe satisfaction for you is doing something that, from the way the world is geared up, is not very successful. Maybe you want to work in a bookshop, and maybe you never even wanted to work in a bookshop, but you find yourself working in a bookshop, um, and you really like the people there, and you kind of like, you're not even a big reader, but you kind of like the people who come in, and you like the books, and you like organizing them, and maybe you read a little bit, but you don't earn a huge amount of money, but you just really like going to the bookshop every day, and you like the people. There's a little place you can go for lunch, and there's a little place you go and get your tea or coffee, and you just like the whole thing. You like your little going to work, you like your commute, you like coming home. You're kind of okay with where you live. Maybe it'd be nice if it was a little bit bigger or a little bit swankier or whatever, but mostly it's okay. And you're just happy. Okay. And then you catch up with some friends that you had when you were in school. And they're like doctors and lawyers and test pilots, and I'm thinking of, coders. They're making like 5 and 6 times the amount of money you are. And they've got nicer things, nicer houses, nicer cars. You don't even have a car. It's quite hard then to go, I'm satisfied. Then it sounds like you've just settled. No, I'm going for a satisfied life, and I'm satisfied. And the feeling of like, but you're not very ambitious, are you? It's like, but I'm satisfied. That's what I mean about it's kind of revolutionary. But the thing is, like, to hold your own counsel about that. You're the only one who gets to look in the mirror, and you don't know what's going on for those people, for your friends and the other people, the people who are the lawyers and accountants and test pilots and whatever. If they're satisfied, fantastic. But you'll find, and I have found, when you scratch the surface with a lot of people who are focused on success, that there's a thing built into success of you can never be happy with your success because then you'll stagnate. You always have to be, going for the next thing, going for the next thing. I remember a salesman telling me years ago, big organization. I just heard this on a tape, actually. He wasn't telling me directly. And he was saying that all his salesmen had reached this level of this goal that he'd set for them. And they'd all done it. And they were all super happy, and they got the big bonus and whatever. And he took them out on his boat on purpose. And none of them were into boats that much. So he took them out on his boat. I don't know how big it was, but there was enough for like 10 people to be on it. And it was a kind of a luxury boat. And he took them on it with the express purpose of making them want a boat, because he knew that the level that they'd reached, they would, in his words, stagnate at that level, that he had to set them up with a new thing to aim for. And the next new thing was a boat, because he knew they couldn't afford a boat. None of them could afford a boat. So as a kind of a carrot or something to aim for, he brought them all out in his boat. They all went out in the boat. None of them were interested in boats when they left the harbour. By the time they got back, they all wanted to buy a boat. And he was like, right, they're all going to hit my new targets that I set for them. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but it does put you in a perpetual state of not being able to appreciate what you've got. And so you could say those men, while they were getting more and more money and wealth and objects, they were in a continual state of not being satisfied. And I don't want to live like that. And if you're happy in your bookshop, maybe you don't want to live like that as well. So if you're out having dinner with all the guys who want to buy a boat, you are going to seem like you've settled. They'll be like, what are you talking about? How can you just be an employee? How can you just go to the same place every day and, no prospects for expansion, And the thing is, like, to look at if if that is going to be what it is for you, and you'd be satisfied with that, you know. Like there's a whole thing on this whole subculture of cottagecore. I always think the cottagecore people are really into being satisfied, you know. They can spend hours just arranging things in little beautiful little arrangements, and you can tell they don't make a lot of money, you know, unless they're doing great on YouTube or something like that. But you know, the people who do great on YouTube are kind of the exceptions. For every person who's doing great on YouTube doing the thing they love, there's a lot of people who are heading in that direction as well. But the cottagecore people, you know, anything you can just buy off the shelf, they're not that interested in. They'd rather make their paper and make these handwritten, beautiful letters and seal them with the wax seal. All hugely time consuming, you know. And you're like, how do you have time to do anything else? And how do you have time to get ahead and succeed? And they're not interested in it, you know. But you can tell they all seem very satisfied, you know. Everything, they're just really clicked into this thing of, this gives me a lot of pleasure. Making this paper, getting the bits, getting the wax, finding the special wax to make, getting a quill and learning how to do calligraphy. Yeah, they're just really happy to do all that kind of thing. And if they could just do that all the time, they'd be very satisfied. So this idea of success, you can only really talk about success in terms of, did I get a better car? Did I get a better job? Can I sort of say this income? And, you know, all of which other people can look at and go, oh yeah, you're doing pretty good, aren't you? Externally. No one can see into your soul and see whether you're satisfied or not. But see into your mind and your heart and your soul, like this meme says. That's between you and you. So you could have all the great things and look in the mirror and go, I'm so miserable. Or I'm so under pressure, you know. I don't have time to enjoy any of this stuff, you know. Yeah, I got the boat, but I never get time to go out on it, you know. So this is beautiful, I think, this idea of a satisfied life. It's so good to turn over inside. Am I satisfied? What? And then like, no, I'm not. Like maybe if you were the boat person going, the person wanting to get the boat. Am I satisfied? What an alien concept. Let me think about that for a minute. No, I'm not. You know, it's like, well, do you want to be? Like, well, what would it look like? Or maybe you're in the bookshop. Are you satisfied? Mostly. Like, well, what would being completely satisfied look like? What would it feel like on the inside? It's a good question. All right, the next one says, the spiritual journey is the unlearning of fear and the acceptance of love. Again, this is lovely, isn't it? On paper. But unlearning fear is hard, and accepting love is probably harder. But it's like, but no, wait, listen. That'd be great if I could unlearn fear, and if I could just accept love. Well, it's like often when I'm working with somebody for one-to-one work, and particularly if it's a physical thing, often it comes, particularly if it's a physical thing that's been going on for a long time, they've gone through lots of other therapists and worn them out and kind of like not got anywhere. And we've been going along, and they've been improving and improving and improving. And often we'll get to a point of wondering about what is the payoff for the sickness. And the timing of this is very important, because at the wrong time, particularly if the person's in pain, they're like, there's no payoff to this, and they'll kind of bounce out of the process. So the timing is right, and I'm hoping you're not sick when you're hearing this, but it's good to kind of think about it, because often the person will discover that there are reasons why, and you can get to them when you kind of think about, well, what would it be like if I was completely better? How would that be? And then around the edges, you can begin to sort of see, oh yeah, I'd have to meet all these expectations. I'd have to live up to my potential. I'd have to whatever, It's a bit like the idea of winning the lottery. Most people kind of would go, oh, how would you feel about winning the lottery? Oh yeah, that'd be good, I think. It's a rare the person would go, no, winning the lottery, that's not for me. Most people would go, yeah, great. But if you think about what it would be like to win the lottery, whatever the size is, the bigger the better. Initially, there'd be a bit of a party on the inside. You'd be like, oh, it'd be great. I'd be able to do this. I'd be able to buy that boat or whatever, the car, pay off this thing, pay off that thing, give money to my family, help out whatever charities, whatever. And then it's like around the edges of that party, you begin to notice the anxiety. And you go, yeah, but then people would know that I was very wealthy, and then they'd ask me for money, and initially I'd probably give it to them, but then at some point I'd have to say no. I'd have to say no, sorry, I don't like that. Maybe people would try and rob it from me. Maybe they'd kidnap my kids. Maybe they'd kidnap me. Maybe they'd kidnap my partner. I'd become a bit of a target. They'd see the boat in the driveway. They would think, oh, this person's got money. I'd have to build a, big wall around where I live. Maybe I'd have to move away from my neighbors, And the more you go into it, they're like, oh, wow, there's a lot of reasons. There's a lot of cons to this being very wealthy thing, So it's kind of the same with unlearning of fear, You kind of go, well, but fear has kept me safe, Like I don't like it, but it's got me out of some, or made me avoid some potentially dangerous situations. Maybe it's not so bad. Maybe just a little bit of fear, practical fear, but to unlearn it all, which is what this meme is saying. The spiritual journey is an unlearning of fear. That means, what would that mean? What's the anxiety? I'm afraid about the idea of not having any fear. That means I'd be like a baby, but well, babies have got their own little fears, but wouldn't I'd be just very exposed. I'd be, and then the acceptance of love. We think, oh, that'd be good. There's nothing wrong with that. But really, I think it's a matter of degrees. Okay, the acceptance of love is a matter of degrees. But when you put that in the context of the spiritual journey and the acceptance of love, it's not like, oh yeah, I think people like me. Oh, I think my partner kind of loves me. Yeah, I kind of, but it's difficult, They love me mostly the way I want to be loved, but then there's all that other stuff that they do. It's way beyond that, into looking around and going, everywhere my gaze falls is a reflection of love, that I am loved, Like this person earlier on was talking about God and not connecting with God, but this thing of like, what I wake up to every morning is this outpouring of love towards me. Sounds lovely, but that is like putting your head in a wind tunnel. Or if you really let it in, you see that every little, if you see that everything has been made for you, every little blade of grass, in an extremely intimate way. Now, I should add that in my knowledge of what people call God, it is that intimate, but it's also incredibly impersonal. So it's not like mommy and daddy loving me. It's just raw love, if you can see it. And to really see it, it sort of blows your circuits out, So again, little meme, spiritual journey is the unlearning of fear and the acceptance of love. Oh yeah, that sounds lovely. But to actually live that, it's intense. It's very intense. And a bit like what I was saying with the person at the beginning about going down the spiral, it's a matter of, you can unlearn a certain amount of fear and you can accept a certain amount of love, and then you sort of drop down another layer, and it's like deeper acceptance, deeper unlearning, deeper love, and it just keeps going and going, which is great. The more you look for it, the more you make it your business to unlearn fear, the more you go deeper into it, and you get into deeper and deeper and deeper fears you didn't even know were there. And the same with love. The more you accept it, it goes deeper and deeper and deeper. So, yeah, pretty powerful, this one. Now, next one says, we cannot shame ourselves into change. We can only love ourselves into evolution. Another little meme, doesn't seem like it's much, but if you can adopt this, it is radical, super radical, because most of us, we just grow up thinking shame is, that's how you get anything done, isn't it? There's something wrong with me, and I'm just going to try and improve myself. I'm going to keep trying to better myself, which is, like, let's say I don't know how to speak Japanese, which I don't. And let's say I want to figure out how to speak Japanese, or I want to learn how to speak Japanese. So I go and do some lessons, and maybe I go and visit Japan, and I get pretty good. Okay? So you could say, you could confuse that with improving yourself. I haven't improved myself, I've just learned a new skill. Okay? And yeah, sure, it's beautiful, it's added to the texture of my life, it's great, I really enjoy it, but I haven't improved because I wasn't flawed to start off with. I was just me doing my thing, and I wanted to learn this new thing. Often we conflate those two and go, oh, I eat too much. I'm a slob. I just shovel it in there, and now I'm overweight. There's something wrong with me. I need to improve myself. Okay? That's not what's going on, in my experience. And it's common, very common, that just say it's certainly to do with weight loss, that the yo-yo dieting thing. It's a really good example of like shaming yourself into changing. That's it. I can't fit into my clothes anymore. I'm disgusted with myself. I can't bear to look at myself in the mirror. And I'm going to, take myself in hand and just beat myself into shape and make myself do all this stuff. And you can do it. You can do it for a while. But like I've said before, when you stuff things down, they just come out the sides, So you might have the body you want, but maybe you'll suddenly find yourself drinking a lot more than you would, or buying a lot more clothes for this lovely new body that you've got, or it doesn't work. Shaming yourself into change doesn't work because it starts with this premise that there's something wrong with you. And it's like, if I do enough, if I bend myself into the right shape, then I won't feel flawed anymore. Well, I can tell you, it never goes away. It never goes away unless it does. But you can't make it go away by trying to fix the problem, because the fundamental problem is a misidentification that you have a problem or that you're flawed to start off with, like this very deep feeling that fundamentally there's something wrong with us. It runs deep, and everybody seems to have it. Everybody I work with anyway has it. And it's so unfair, because when you can let go of it and when you realize there's nothing wrong, then it frees you up it makes everything so much more efficient, because you don't feel like you're working with spoiled goods or flawed merchandise. You're just trying to make something out of a bad thing. You're trying to dress it up. You kind of know that you're neutral, meaning you're as good as anybody else, that you're as perfect as anybody else, and that maybe you want to learn Japanese, or maybe you want to change your body shape. Maybe you want to see how fit you can become. Maybe you want to see how you want to get to a particular weight, but you're not doing it because you think there's something fundamentally wrong with you to start off with. And that goes across everything, Like, you might discover that you are socially not great. You're a bit too honest or something. And, people don't like you. you can even like things like that. You can kind of go, oh, okay, so what if you are trying to fix that from the perspective of there's something wrong with me, nobody likes me. You can there are not enough people in the world to get you to change that. You could get everybody in the whole world to like you and still feel like you are flawed. Like I remember listening to an interview with Bono that was stuck in my mind, Bono from U2. And the interviewer was waxing lyrical about how wise Bono was and how great he was and what a deep thinker and a wonderful person he was. And Bono stopped him and said, "I need at least 400,000 people in a stadium screaming my name and telling me how brilliant I am to begin to fill up this big hole of emptiness I have inside me. I don't think I'm as together as you're making out." Okay, I'm paraphrasing. That's what I got from it. And I thought it was really very honest of Bono. But it's true, you can't get enough people to like you. But if you kind of go, okay, what am I doing? What's going on in my behavior that I'm doing that's making people relate to me like this? And like the internet is full of people who have got all these hacks and how to understand your own personality and your way of social interaction, where you can totally improve that. But if you're improving it from the point of view of well, I don't think there's anything wrong with me, I just don't have these particular set of skills, then you can just learn those skills and you can have lots of very enjoyable social interactions. It's just a thing you didn't innately get. There's so many things in that when we're growing up, our parents teach us a lot of things, but there's a lot of things they don't teach us and we're just supposed to understand. Sex is a great example. Like nobody teaches anybody about sex, and we're just supposed to understand how it works. I mean, there's loads and loads of books and things that you can get, but you have to go and figure it out. You have to go and teach yourself, how to do it. I don't mean how to do it, but how to, what it's about, what's like, what the whole how to, so that it's enjoyable for everybody involved. That doesn't come naturally. We kind of just are supposed to think that it will, but it doesn't. So, and again, if you go at that going, oh, there's something wrong with me, I'm just terrible at sex. Well, you can have sex till you're blue in the face and you still won't feel like there isn't something wrong with you. You'll always feel like that. Whereas if you go into these things going, okay, well, I'm fine, so let me just learn some new skills here. And there's this, the feeling of that is, oh, and it's supposed to just happen naturally. It's like love and romance and relationships. Nobody tells you how to do that. And the reason your parents don't tell you how to do relationships or how to do sex is they haven't a clue. They just have like whatever they figured out. But it might work for you. But the feeling is like, oh, I'm just supposed to know how to do this stuff. And most of us don't. Most of us don't know how to do it. So this thing of like loving yourself into evolution, that's the tricky bit, because you have to really love yourself, not in an arrogant, egotistical, I'm the best thing ever. I don't mean that, but love yourself like a child. Like a child who doesn't know what they're doing. It's not like you just throw the shoes and the laces at the child and go figure it out. Nobody does that. They go, oh yeah, tying your shoelace, it's not easy. Let's say this is how you thread up the shoe, and this is how you tie the knot. So we do that for those kind of things, but not the other kind of things like relationships, money, finances, sex. Like my mother showed me how to iron clothes, and she showed me how to sew. She didn't show me how to clean a bathroom. I had to figure that out. It took me a while how to clean a bathroom, or how to clean an oven, or how to it's so funny. Like when it comes to ironing and sewing, I'm like, yep, no problem. I know how to do this because I was shown, but not the other stuff. The other stuff is like something not right in the bathroom. I'm just not sure how to yeah, let me just go and figure out how to do that, And that's just a simple thing, But loving yourself like a child, going, I am terrible at social things. I just keep saying the wrong thing. Going, well, okay, let's go and figure that out together. Let's see what we can learn, And then with the deeper stuff, because shame, particularly if we, do something, we hurt somebody, and the shame comes up of like, oh, there's my flaw. There's my flaw on display. And, it's not. It's just a bit of your unconsciousness coming up to be transformed into consciousness. And that only happens by love. Nothing else does it except love. You can't beat yourself into becoming more conscious. You can't discipline yourself into becoming more conscious. The only thing that does it is love, as far as I can see. Or my experience. And I've tried lots of different ways. So yeah, it's a lovely little thing. You can't shame yourself into change. You can only love yourself into evolution. Okay, that's all I've got for you this time. This stopped raining, but I think it's going to rain again. I trust you're well. I trust you're of good cheer. And I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.